Good afternoon, Doctor. I am Fiona, one of the presenters from Group Future Billionaire. Beside me, our group members are Yee Chee Pei, Amirin, Daniel, and Amirul Shafie. Our group would like to investigate the patent market in our chosen country, Australia. Australia is an island located between the Pacific and Indian Oceans. It's one of the world's most populous countries. Australia is a distinct and diversified country due to its population, culture, histories, and climate. Australia's current Prime Minister is Scott Morrison and the Deputy Prime Minister is Barnaby Joyce, who also sits as Ministry of Infrastructure, Transport and Regional Development. Australia's political stability index is inconsistent. Although the political stability index of Australia is up and down, we believe that Australia is secure and there have not been conflict there. There are a few reasons why the political stability index of Australia is inconsistent. First, because of the Scott Morrison is concentrating on keeping the government's budget in balance and reducing debt. Well, in bushfire and glass fire issue, the government administrations of Australia refused to accept that they changed their character in reactions to the environment and made the Australians distrust grow as a result of their recklessness. Not only that, the relationship between Australia and China have deteriorated because of the COVID-19 outbreak. Australia's economy is now in flood. The country is facing a record high budget deficit. The first economic challenge is the reliance on natural resources. This is because natural resources are more important in Australia's economy. Australia's poor economic growth is the country's second economic challenges. Because of the economic consequences from the coronavirus, Australia's GDP fell during the last 3 years. The third economic challenges of Australia is employment creation. Despite the fact more jobs were created, employment rose and worsened. More than 50% of Australia shop online for clothing and becomes the most popular items Australians choose. We will gain the profit if we start our patent business in Australia. Australian government is a hybrid of representative democracy and constitutional monarchy. Representative democracy is a form of government in which individuals vote for candidates to represent them in the legislature. A constitutional monarchy does not have unlimited authority, and citizens are required to observe the country's constitution. Australia's parliamentary system is built on Westminster's model, which is similar to the United Kingdom. Australia has two-party systems at the federal and state level, with the Australian Labor Party contending for power with coalitions of the Liberals and National parties. Australia's legal system is separate from its political system. Australia's political environment supports with the transparent and well-established political process. A strong legal system accompanies governance and independent bureaucracy. Australia's Corporation Perception Index (CPI) currently records 70 and 7 with a negative 8-point shift since 2012. Australia ranks 11th out of 180 countries in the CPI ranking. This is because of Australia consistently supporting and funding anti-corruption efforts.
Hi, my name is Amirul Shafie bin Azlan. My matches ID is 74079. Today, I want to briefly present to you about the economic and business environment analysis of Australia. Firstly, we start by the demography of Australia itself. The population of Australia in 2020 was 25 million, and in 2019, the population of Australia is around 25 million also. Therefore, the growth rate of population in 2020 was 1.3%, meanwhile in 2019, the population growth was 1.5%. The distribution of population in Australia is from 0 until 94 years old. For Australia, in 2020, the rural population is around 3 million people, meanwhile the urban population is around 22 million. Alright, next, per capita incomes level and wealth distribution in Australia. In 2020, the income per capita in Australia is around 89,122 per year, which means 7,426.83 cents per month for a full-time earnings workers in Australia. Therefore, in Australia, there is a three categories of household wealth distribution, which is the highest wealth, comfortable middles, and the lowest wealth. Thirdly, about the major export and trading partners. For Australia, the biggest export products that have been sold to another country in 2020 is iron ores and concrete, which is valued as much as 78 billions. In 2020 also, China is the most country who does the most international trade with Australia. Fourthly, the business environment, government attitude to foreign investment and trend is of doing business and trade regulation. Foreign investment in Australia is total 3.5 trillion, with Australian investing 2.5 trillion overseas. Therefore, this shows that Australia encouraging the foreign investment because there is more foreign investment in the country. Australia is one of the countries that is easy to do business in it. It is because Australia has been awarded the 14th position as the easiest country to do business by the World Bank. For Australia, there are a trade regulation that has been implemented, which is the Competition and Consumer Act 2010, that legislation that control how all firms in Australia must interact with their customers, rivals and suppliers and oversee fair dealing in Australia. Moreover, inflation level, currency exchange rate and risk of devaluation versus the dollar. For Australia, the rate of the inflation in 2020 is 0.89%, meanwhile if compared with 2019, which the rate of the inflation is 1.57%. For Australia, the exchange rate average in 2020 against United States dollar, which is known as USD, is around 0.69. For Australia itself, in 2020, there is a risk of devaluation versus the dollar due to the factors such as the rise of the economy of United States during the COVID-19 impact compared to the other developed country and large fiscal stimulus by the President of United States. Next, about the education and literacy level, ability of skill levels and labor costs. There is 4 types of education level in Australia, which is the preschool, primary school, secondary school, and the higher education or the vocational education. Literacy level is the ability to read and write, which has been measured based on the population in a country, which in Australia there is 5 level of literacy. In Australia also, the ability of skill level is as much as 82,000 in 2021. Meanwhile, in labor cost is the total of the number of the units that have been divided by the total expenses for the time being. And in 2020, the labor cost of Australia are 102.5 points. So we move on to the membership in regional economics and trading blocks of Australia. Regional Economics Cooperation is a means of a transition to a global economy. It's offered a paradigm that encourages technology and investment. For example, one of the regional economic corporation that has been joined by Australia is Asia Pacific Economic Corporation, which is APEC. And the trading bloc is a group of a country in that specific region that handles the trade and economics activities among their group together. Alright, last but not least, the legal system, which is the protection of intellectual property rights and the enforcement of the contract. In Australia, the agency that play an important role in carrying out the responsibility is the IP Australia, which is the Australia government agency that have the administration of the intellectual property right and legalization in Australia. Contracts in generally may only be enforced by the party to the contract.
On to the next section, which will be presented by me, Amirin. And firstly, I'll be talking about the current usage habit for batik. In definition, batik is a method of producing colored designs on textiles by dyeing them, having first applied wax to the parts to be left undyed. In terms of current usage habits for it, batik are used on clothing, furnishing fabrics, heavy canvas, wall hangings, and many more. On to the next topic. In terms of competitors, batik is a traditional technique that is ingrained into the Malay culture. This lands it in a very niche category. there are also other local brands in Australia that produce textile. However, they tend to fall in the fast fashion type of brands. So, an entrance of batik into the market would make it stand out to say the least. On the next topic is I'll be talking about the retail distribution channel that we will use for distributing our product, which is batik. Retail distribution channels can be divided into three categories. We believe that the best type of distribution channel for our operation is the selective distribution type. This method advantage is that the firm can focus all or most of the effort on the best performing outlets. This is so because we are only just starting and we are focusing on Western Australia as our main base of operation. As time goes on, we will focus on developing strong bonds with local customers and hope that this would bring us more customers through the word of mouth. As for advertisement method used in Australia, according to Statista.com, the highest usage percentage for advertisement at 72% was through word-to-word recommendation, either through family, relatives, or acquaintance. This is followed by online review or recommendation from someone within your social media circles at 55%, and thirdly through television ads at 53%. This shows that advertising in Australia is still very old school, except for the social media circles that could still be argued as old school because you are still talking to people in your circle only. On to the next one is about the total size of market. In terms of total size of the market, Western Australia makes up 11% of Australia population with 2.5 million inhabitants. 46% of the population are that of below 40 years old, and the region have been consistently experiencing population growth with 1.87% growth in 2019. This shows that there would be longevity in the market as the population in that region of Australia is increasing yearly based on the evidence shown before. As for our target market and target demographic is the young and curious type of customers. When I say young, we mean those that are around the median age of Western Australia, which is 36 years old. Why we target this type of people is because the curious type of customer tend to come from this age group. We also target both genders as our target market because of the versatility nature of batik's design that could be considered as gender fluid.
Greetings to Dr. No Arfiza, my name is Yee Chee Pei, and I will explain about the cultural dimension of doing business in Australia and the supermarket entry mode to Australia. Australia is a country with various migrant populations that has over 120 religions, but it has been a Christian majority country since a long time ago. The census in 2016 shows that Christianity is still the major religion in Australia with 52% of population, and the major ethnicity in Australia is English with a population of 25.9%. And the language spoken by Australian is English. In Australia, there are 3 sports that are well recognized by the people, which is Australian football, cricket, and rugby union. For recreation, walking is the most participated activity done by the Australian according to the survey from Sports Australia that is approximated to 98,565,000, which is the same as 46.5%. As we all know that every country has different aspects of values, customs, and behaviors. In Australia, liberty, tolerance, and meritocracy are the key values to the Australians. And because of that, many individuals are desired to be an Australian citizen. Besides that, handshakes are a very frequent behavior in Australia, and they usually introduce themselves by their first name. Business etiquette in Australia can be said that not too strict and be more relaxed. In a formal situation, being late in a meeting leaves a bad impression on other people. Therefore, make sure to reach on time or be earlier.
In the meeting, anyone regardless of age or company hierarchy is normally welcome to speak out. Negotiations are typically quick and easy since Australians start with a straightforward and solid stance that will not require back and forth tactics or counter-offers to land on. The dress code for males is a stylish black business suit is appropriate, while for the ladies, the same or a dress is appropriate. In our opinion, we think that the most suitable market entry mode to Australia is by international franchising. Australia has a thriving economy comparable to Western powers due to its near proximity to Asia, and it presents a very unique potential for commerce with Asia. Australia's gross national income (GNI) based on purchasing power parity in 2020 was $1,320,888 million. The GNI per capita based on PPP in 2020 was $51,420. The gross domestic product (GDP) of Australia in 2020 was negative 0.3%. The World Bank Group's Ease of Doing Business ranking rate Australia 81.2 score in 2020. And the examples of the multinational companies that failed in Australia through franchising is Starbucks and Krispy Kreme. Both of the companies have a similar reason why they fail in Australia. They expand their business rapidly and do not know Australians' demands and preferences, causing them to fail in Australia, and only few stores are available in Australia. Their incidents remind people that a lot of research about a country needs to be done before entering their market, or else we'll end up with a huge loss and failure.
For summary, the stability of Australia's economy for the last 2 decades shows that it is a safe market to enter, especially for small businesses such as us. The tax relief and the increase in young employment is perfect for our business model, as we are targeting the young and curious type of consumers. Furthermore, the business environment in Australia is very friendly, and it also applies the free market concept. Rules to ensure fair competition are also in place to ensure that every firms and consumers are on equal footing. In conclusion, all of these factors have made us choose Australia as the market to enter with our product, which is batik. Thank you for watching.